After all these years, I finally have you. From San Diego Comic-Con many years ago, this is the Transformers Prime Shockwave's Lab, Shockwave. So, in a live stream I did recently, I mentioned that Transformers Prime Shockwave was my favorite Decepticon in Prime. He's right up there with Knockout. Alongside that, I mentioned that his toy is insanely expensive nowadays. To get him with all his armor pieces would put you to about $100. Even without the armor, he's going for 60, 70, loose. Well, this isn't the normal retail release of Shockwave. This was the San Diego Comic-Con that gave him a couple of extra paint apps. He is less accurate to the show, but there's also more paint here and I think the body looks better. I got this guy for $50. An incredible deal. I am so happy to have this guy, and he just looks incredible. The reason I like Transformers Prime Shockwave so much and have wanted a toy for him is because Transformers Prime was the first time I ever liked Shockwave. The G1 cartoon Shockwave, not for me. I didn't honestly like the animated Shockwave either. I like the design, but I don't know. I don't like Shockwaves whose whole personality is just I'm ultra loyal to Megatron. I always prefer it when they do kind of have their own greater goals, even if they are ultimately loyal. Prime Shockwave is the first one to really resonate with me, and because of him, I started to look more into the IDW Shockwave and the Marvel Shockwave, and nowadays I'm loving the Skybound Shockwave. If it wasn't for this Shockwave, I don't know if Shockwave would be one of my favorites. And for that reason, he's always going to have a little bit of a special place in my heart. And besides that, the design's just killer. Transformers Prime Shockwave is what I could really see working as a modern redo of G1 Shockwave. I know nowadays we're all loving the Bumblebee movie Shockwave, but back when the Bayverse aesthetic was the main aesthetic of the franchise, this was such a happy marriage between G1 and the movie. You still have some of the more monstrous elements inside his Cyclops helmet, but you're adding on so much bulk and heft, making him look truly menacing. But the great thing about Prime Shockwave was, even though he was far more powerful than many versions of him, and this was definitely a character that could go up against Optimus or Ultra Magnus and come out on top, he was also incredibly smart. They got all parts of Shockwave's personality, not just within the character of Prime Shockwave, but also within the design. You look at this guy, and you think he's going to be this big dumb bruiser, but no, he's smarter than you, he's stronger than you, you're not going to win. I love Prime Shockwave. It doesn't seem like I'm the only one either. Keep in mind, Prime Shockwave was supposed to be a one-episode character, and then, because that one episode was so good, he becomes one of the main bad guys of Season 3. Man, I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of fun just remembering how much I like Prime Shockwave. But just look at this toy. Even if there's none of that character or nostalgia there, this is still just an incredibly looking figure. Now keep in mind, this is the San Diego Comic-Con version. He is a very different color scheme than the usual Prime Shockwave. But looking at the one I have in front of me right now, I adore the color scheme. This beautiful plum purple, this not violent, but this very regal violet throughout the figure is just class. I love the hot pink translucent plastic in the chest. You got great yellow translucent plastic for the eye, though unfortunately it's kind of hard to get light back there. But the thing that really sells it for me are the hits of yellow and silver throughout the figure. Silver here around the chest and in the gun. You also have some very dark gun gray in the cannon. And those few hits of yellow do just help bring the whole character together. The yellow is helping with not just the contrast, but just making this guy feel a little bit like powered up. He's energized. And just from presentations, I'd honestly say this is one of the best Shockwaves in the collection. Articulation is hit or miss. There's a lot of good points here, but we're just starting here at the top. You got a swivel at the head, no up or down. You have a universal at the shoulder, and the armor does get out of the way, so you can raise the arm up. You have an upper arm cut, an elbow joint, and a ball joint for his hand that is very tight. Here in the other arm, same articulation, only you have a elbow joint and a swivel, and you can swivel the gun turret, but we're going to get more to that in just a sec. Nothing in the waist, but You do have universals down here in the hips. The thing is, it's ratchets from side to side and friction from front to back. Personally, I would have preferred ratchets both directions, and also, check this out. That's position 1 in the ratchet. That's a little bit too far out, maybe if it was closer to here. But, you know, other than some maybe botched ratchets, I think that this does work pretty well. Helps you with how much this guy kind of leans and weighs extra on this side with the gun arm. You have... oh, listen to that. Good ratchet elbows, or knees rather. You have an upper leg or lower leg cut, and due to transformation, back and forth at the toe. Great Shockwave. An amazing look for the guy. And what's really cool is he does have a play gimmick. You can take this piece here and then just push it. I love it. It's simple, it's easy, but it's still great. I just want a close-up of it, right? Like, it's one of those things where, like, it doesn't interfere with the figure, and yet, it does give you something fun to do. I'm not going to do it too much because I am worried that we're going to burn it out if you do it too often, but it's a good little gimmick. And even if it does burn out, it doesn't interfere with the look of the figure at all. This is absolutely the type of thing I would love to see in maybe a fusion cannon, or maybe just another Shockwave down the line. But I'm really happy that for right now, this guy at least has such a fun little trick he can do. That said, this guy is also about 10 years old now, and there's some things that I just cannot show you on video because I'm worried it would damage the figure. For instance, taking a look here in the backpack, those are rubber treads on only this side, and the idea is that you could unhook them and connect them to the gun to give Shockwave the cable going to his gun arm that you would have seen in the show. I'm not going to do that. That's rubberized plastic, rubber dries out, and the more you stretch it out or move it, the quicker it will dry out. For the sake of keeping this figure complete for as long as I can, I'm just never going to use that feature. I think it's cool, it was nice when this figure was new, but again, this is just the reality of the ravages of time on a lot of these toys. Even still, the reality is this is an incredible Shockwave. The retail Prime Shockwave is also a very good figure, and in some ways I think it actually looks better than this SDCC version. But I'm so happy to have any version of this guy back in my collection at long last. But maybe you're trying to build up a Prime collection and like to know how he would measure up against some other characters? Let's have a look at that. Unfortunately, I don't have many Prime toys, but here he is alongside Knockout and the Viacon. Excuse my Knockout, he's very old and has a hard time sticking to the positions he needs to be in. But I think this works pretty well scale-wise. Knockout and the Viacon should be a lot smaller than Shockwave, and I like having Knockout and Shockwave together because some of my favorite scenes in Season 3 is literally just Knockout being ultra catty to the new Doctor. I don't have a Prime Starscream, but I do have a TFCC Slipstream that uses the Transformers Prime First Edition Starscream body. This is how those two would scale together, and again, I think that's actually pretty perfect. Starscream should be a lot smaller than Shockwave. And then, just because I can, here he is alongside Alternator Shock Blast. Personally, that's still my favorite Shockwave toy, but boy is this Prime Shockwave giving him a run for his money. So Shockwave is amazing and I love him, that's all well and good, but how is that vehicle mode? Oh, look at it! It's beautiful! Oh, it's dumb and beautiful and it looks kind of like an anteater. Oh, this is Shockwave's tank mode. There's a lot to say here, right? When this toy first came out, people hated this. They thought that it was a boring transformation, and it is. It's a very simple transformation. But as a kid, watching people doing reviews of it, here's what I always thought, right? Shockwave isn't a spy. Shockwave is not a robot in disguise. Shockwave having a tank mode is so that he can shoot things better. So of course, he takes the worst tank mode possible. He's taking something that he can transform into quickly and then transform back. Because that's how his logical mind works, is he's literally looking at transformation as a point A to point B thing, and I love it. In terms of what we have here for transformation, I really love the shape of this tank. It is so wild. And yeah, you can kind of tell where things are. There's the feet, there's the arm, there's the head. But I still think it really, really works. I do like the detail that the tank treads are back here. You do have these flaps that kind of fold up, and thus you have like these cool kind of spikes on the back. That way no one can get you from behind. They're going to impel themselves. It's pretty cool. I also love how the chest detail becomes the cockpit up here. If I had a complaint, it's the fact that I don't think there's enough lock-in points, especially for the legs. Something that's really funny though, there's the arm. In vehicle mode, Shockwave is always covering the balls. That's good. That's what you want to do. I almost said it with a straight face. I almost said it. Oh, man. You know that's when it's bad, is when you laugh at your own joke. By the way, I'm serious about that anteater thing. Look at this. It literally looks like the head of an animal, the tank turret. But you hit the button up here. The gimmick still works. It's not as good as it is in robot mode, just because it does start to hit on things around the turret. But it's still pretty solid. Still a good gimmick. Still a great tank. Allow me a moment to be frank. Is this figure the best? No. Does the fact that it's from San Diego Comic-Con make it any better than the original? Also no. In fact, if anything, it's worse because he doesn't have the silly beast armor. But do I still really love the toy? Absolutely. There's many shortcomings here. The hips are a bit strange, the transformation isn't the most advanced thing in the world, and at the end of the day, none of us can help the fact that as we get older, sometimes pieces start to fall off. But that doesn't change the fact that this is such a great Shockwave toy. To me, I feel like it embodies the character, and it gives you such a great heft, such a weighty toy, that I honestly would still recommend this guy if you could get him for a good price. Do not spend $100 on this Shockwave. He's not worth it. Do not spend $70 on this Shockwave. He's not worth it. But if you could get him for 30, 40, 50, yeah, you'll have a pretty good time with him.